I was 6 months pregnant when my mother-in-law pressed that hot iron against my skin. She wanted to burn away the baby she called cursed blood. But when my billionaire husband walked in and saw the monster his mother truly was, he didn't just defend me. He destroyed her empire piece by piece. This is my story of survival and revenge. I'm Kaylee, and what I'm about to share will make your blood boil. This isn't just about abuse. It's about a mother's jealousy, family secrets, and a revenge so calculated it took down an entire dynasty. If you think you know how this ends, trust me, you don't. Stay until the very end, because what happened in that courtroom changed everything. Let me take you back to where it all started. 3 years ago, I was working double shifts as a waitress at Riverside Country Club, one of those exclusive places where memberships cost more than most people make in a year. I wasn't supposed to be there long term. It was just a job to pay the bills and send money back home to my father, who was battling heart disease. The tips were good, the hours were brutal, but I kept my head down and did my work. I served champagne to people who spent more on one dinner than I made in a month, and I smiled through it all because that's what you do when you need to survive. Every Friday evening, this man would come in and sit in my section. Christopher Lancaster. I didn't know who he was at first, just another suit with expensive taste and perfect manners. But unlike the others who barely looked at me while ordering, Christopher actually talked to me. He asked about my day, remembered my name after the first visit, and one day he asked me what my dreams were. I remember laughing because no one had asked me that in years. I told him the truth, that I wanted to be a chef someday, to have my own small restaurant where I could create food that made people feel at home. He didn't laugh, he just smiled and said that sounded like a beautiful dream. 6 months of Friday dinners turned into coffee on a Tuesday afternoon, which turned into my first real date with a man who, I later discovered, was worth more money than I could even comprehend. Christopher Lancaster was the sole heir to Lancaster Industries, a real estate empire that owned half the city's skyline. But when he was with me, he wasn't a billionaire. He was just Christopher, the man who loved old movies, hated pretentious wine tastings, and thought my homemade pasta was better than anything at his 5-star restaurants. When he proposed after a year of dating, I thought I was living in a fairy tale. I had no idea I was actually walking into a nightmare. Meeting his mother, Patricia Lancaster, should have been my first warning. She was everything you'd imagine. Perfectly styled silver hair, designer clothes that cost more than a car, and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. Our first meeting was at the Lancaster estate for Sunday brunch. The house wasn't just big, it was a monument to wealth and power. 50 rooms of marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and portraits of ancestors who all seemed to be judging me from their gilded frames. Patricia was charming that day. She asked about my family, my work, and even complimented my dress, a simple yellow sundress I'd bought on sale because I didn't own anything appropriate for meeting billionaires. I thought she liked me. I really did. But 2 weeks later, I was at the estate early to surprise Christopher, and I overheard Patricia on the phone in her study. Her words are burned into my memory. "Let him play with the waitress. He'll get bored. They always do. Boys need to get these little rebellions out of their system before settling down with someone appropriate." I stood frozen in that hallway, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. She wasn't accepting me. She was tolerating me, waiting for me to disappear. When Christopher proposed 3 months later, Patricia's mask finally slipped. At our engagement party, an event she insisted on planning, she announced our engagement to the press before I could even tell my own father. She controlled the narrative, spinning it as a Cinderella story that made me look like a gold digger who'd trapped her precious son. But I loved Christopher, and I thought love would be enough. I walked down that aisle in a dress that cost more than my father's yearly medical bills toward a man who promised to protect me forever. Patricia wore white to my wedding, white, like she was the bride, like she was trying to erase me even on my own wedding day. And right before I walked down that aisle, she cornered me in the bridal room. Her perfume was suffocating as she leaned in close and whispered, "You'll never be good enough for my son. This family has a way of getting rid of problems. Ask Christopher about his first girlfriend." I was shaking, but I walked down that aisle anyway because I was young and naive and thought love conquered all. That night, our wedding night, Christopher received a business emergency call. I spent my first night as a married woman alone in our honeymoon suite, staring at the ceiling and wondering what I'd gotten myself into. That became the pattern of our marriage. Christopher constantly pulled away by business emergencies, trips, meetings that couldn't wait. And me, left alone in a mansion that felt more like a prison with every passing day. We moved into the family estate because Patricia insisted it made more sense. The place was big enough that we'd have privacy, she said. She lived in the East Wing, we'd have the West Wing, and we'd barely see each other. That was the biggest lie of all. Patricia had keys to everything. She came and went as she pleased, rearranging my things, correcting my choices, slowly erasing any trace of me from what was supposed to be my home. It started small. She'd reorganize my closet because my style was inappropriate for a Lancaster. She'd redo the table settings I'd arranged because I didn't understand proper etiquette. But then it escalated. She threw a dinner party 3 months into my marriage and introduced me to her society friends as the help, and then laughed like it was the funniest joke in the world. Everyone laughed with her while I stood there, humiliated, wanting to disappear. Christopher was away on another business trip, of course. There was one maid, Rosa, who was kind to me. She'd bring me tea when Patricia's cruelty left me in tears. She'd tell me stories about her own family to distract me from my loneliness. One morning I came downstairs to find security escorting Rosa out of the house. Patricia stood there, arms crossed, accusing her of stealing. Rosa was crying, pleading her innocence, and Patricia made me watch the whole thing. After Rosa was gone, Patricia turned to me and said, "That's what happens to people who forget their place." The message was clear. I was next if I didn't fall in line. She replaced all my family photos with Lancaster portraits. When I protested, she said, "You're a Lancaster now. Your past doesn't matter. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be." I called my father that night sobbing, but he was too sick to help. He told me to be strong, to make my marriage work, because he didn't have much time left, and he wanted to know I was taken care of. So I stayed. I endured. I tried to be the perfect Lancaster wife. Then everything changed. 3 months into the marriage, I discovered I was pregnant. I was terrified, but also hopeful. Maybe a baby would change things. Maybe Patricia would soften. Maybe Christopher would finally stay home. I told Christopher first, and his joy was genuine. He held me and promised to be around more, to be the father he never had, to make this work. The family dinner where we announced the pregnancy is a moment I'll never forget. I'd practiced what to say, how to share the news in a way that would make Patricia happy. But the moment the words left my mouth, Patricia's face went pale and then red with rage. She excused herself from the table without a word. Christopher thought she was just emotional, overcome with happiness. But I knew better. I saw the fury in her eyes. Later that night, Christopher's sister Amanda pulled me aside. We'd become friendly. Or so I thought. She was younger than Christopher, always seemed nice enough, and I'd trusted her. She told me something that made my blood run cold. Mother had 3 miscarriages after Christopher. She can't stand the idea of you giving him what she couldn't give father, more children. You need to be careful. Careful didn't even begin to cover what I needed to be. Patricia's cruelty became a full-scale assault after that announcement. She'd blast music at 3 a.m. right outside my bedroom door, then apologize sweetly, saying she forgot I was sleeping. My prenatal vitamins disappeared one day, replaced with regular multivitamins. I didn't notice for weeks until my doctor expressed concern about my baby's development. I thought I'd just been careless, mixing up the bottles. At 6 months pregnant, exhausted and barely holding on, Patricia invited Christopher's ex-girlfriend to family brunch. Her name was Juliana, everything I wasn't. Educated at the best schools, from old money, sophisticated and poised. Patricia spent the entire meal reminiscing about when Juliana and Christopher dated, dropping comments like, "Remember when you were going to give us grandchildren?" Christopher finally saw this manipulation and had a massive fight with his mother. I thought things might change, but the next morning he left for another business trip. That's when Patricia started the rumors. She told the staff, her friends, anyone who would listen, that she wasn't sure the baby was Christopher's. How do we even know it's his child? She worked at a country club, serving all those men. Who knows what happened before Christopher came along? The staff started looking at me differently, with judgment, disgust, pity. And Amanda, sweet Amanda, who I thought was my friend, was actually fueling these rumors behind my back. I found this out later, but Amanda had been reporting everything I did back to Patricia from day one. Every conversation, every mistake I made, every moment of vulnerability, Amanda documented it all. The two of them were building a case against me, painting me as unstable, as a liar, as someone unfit to be a mother. I had no idea how deep their conspiracy went. The day everything exploded was a Tuesday morning in April. Christopher had left the day before for a week-long business trip to London. Some important deal that couldn't wait, he said. I was 6 months pregnant, exhausted beyond words, and so alone. That morning, I was in the kitchen making tea, a special blend my father used to make for me when I was a child. It was one of my few comforts in that house. Patricia walked in with Amanda by her side. I should have known something was wrong by the way they looked at me, like predators who'd finally cornered their prey. Patricia started with her usual insults about how I was ruining Christopher's reputation, how I'd trapped him with this baby. But this time, Amanda joined in. "You've trapped my brother. That baby is probably not even his. You're just a gold digger who got lucky." Something inside me snapped. For 6 months, I'd endured everything silently, but hearing Amanda, someone I'd trusted, say these things broke something in me. I snapped back. "This is my baby, my husband, and I'm done with your cruelty. I'm done being treated like I'm nothing in my own home." The look in Patricia's eyes changed. It went cold, dead, like looking into the eyes of a shark. She saw the iron sitting on the counter. I'd been pressing Christopher's shirts because I still did that myself, old habits from my waitress days. She grabbed it. The iron was still hot, still plugged in. "What are you doing?" I backed away, but Amanda moved behind me, grabbing my arms and holding me in place. I couldn't believe it. Christopher's sister was helping his mother attack me. "You want to keep playing house?" Patricia's voice was eerily calm as she walked toward me with that iron. "Let me mark you so everyone knows what you really are," I screamed as she pressed the burning iron against my forearm. The pain was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Searing, burning, consuming. The smell of my own flesh burning made me want to vomit. Amanda let go immediately. Even she hadn't expected Patricia to actually do it. But Patricia wasn't done. She raised the iron again, and this time she aimed it toward my pregnant belly. "Let's get rid of the problem permanently," she said. That's when the front door slammed open with such force I thought it would break off its hinges. Christopher's voice, raw and furious, filled the house. "What the hell is happening?" His London meeting had been a setup, a fake deal created to get him out of the country. His business partner had called him, suspicious about the timing and the details that didn't add up. Christopher had a gut feeling something was wrong and rushed back home. He walked into the kitchen to see his mother holding a hot iron, me on the floor cradling my pregnant belly and crying, my arm burned and blistering, and Amanda standing there with guilt written all over her face. Time seemed to freeze. Patricia immediately switched tactics, her voice syrupy sweet. "Darling, thank God you're home." She attacked me first. I was just defending myself. But Christopher wasn't listening to her. He was looking at me, at my burned arm, at my pregnant belly, at the terror in my eyes. He didn't say a single word to his mother. Instead, he pulled out his phone and made 3 calls in succession. First to 911, then to his personal lawyer, then to his head of security. All while staring at his mother with a look I'd never seen on his face before, pure, cold fury. The paramedics arrived within minutes. They treated my burns right there in the kitchen while Christopher held my other hand. His jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. The burns were 2nd degree, they said. Scarring was likely. They checked the baby. My contractions had started from the stress. I was going into early labor at 6 months. The baby wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. At the hospital, the doctors managed to stop the contractions with medication and bed rest. The baby was okay, but it was close. Too close. Christopher sat by my hospital bed and I told him everything. 6 months of psychological torture, the small cruelties that added up to a mountain of pain, the rumors, the isolation, Rosa being fired, the replaced vitamins, everything. He listened without interrupting, his hand holding mine, his knuckles white from gripping so hard. When I finished, he made one more call. Pull every security footage from the house. Every camera. I want the last 6 months, every second. I want it all on my desk in 2 hours. The footage revealed horrors I didn't even know about. Yes, it showed Patricia's abuse, Amanda's participation in the rumors, all the psychological warfare they'd waged against me. But it showed something worse, much worse. The security team enhanced the kitchen footage and discovered that Patricia had been adding something to my food. Small amounts of certain herbs, harmless to most people but dangerous for pregnant women. She'd been deliberately trying to cause pregnancy complications. This explained why my baby wasn't developing properly, why I was always exhausted beyond normal pregnancy fatigue, why my doctor was concerned. Patricia had been slowly poisoning me for months, and the cameras caught her doing it, carefully grinding herbs into my meals when she thought no one was watching. But Christopher discovered something else on those tapes, footage of Patricia meeting with a private investigator in the estate's garden. The security team pulled the audio. Patricia was building a case to have me declared mentally unfit after the baby was born. She'd planned to take my child and have me institutionalized, claiming postpartum psychosis. She had doctors lined up, testimony prepared, everything arranged. Amanda knew about all of it. They'd been planning this for months. Christopher went even deeper. He remembered what his mother had said at our wedding about his first girlfriend. He'd never questioned it before. His first serious girlfriend had died in college, supposedly fell down the stairs at a party at the Lancaster estate. It was ruled an accident, but Christopher started digging, pulling old police reports, talking to people who were there that night. The girlfriend's name was Caroline. She'd been 3 months pregnant with Christopher's child. Patricia had been there when Caroline fell. Several witnesses mentioned Patricia and Caroline arguing at the top of the stairs moments before Caroline fell. But the case was closed quickly. Lancaster money and influence made sure of that. Christopher realized with horror that his mother was capable of murder. She'd killed before to protect the Lancaster name, and she'd been planning to kill again. The revenge Christopher unleashed wasn't hot and angry. It was cold, calculated, and absolutely devastating. He didn't just press charges for the iron attack. He brought charges of attempted murder based on the poisoning, assault with intent to harm, and he pushed to reopen Caroline's case with new evidence. He had Patricia and Amanda arrested. The media frenzy was instant and brutal. "Lancaster dynasty crumbles," the headlines screamed. "Billionaire's mother arrested for attempted murder." Christopher removed Patricia from every company board, stripped her access to the family trust funds, money that was actually his inheritance, which meant he controlled every penny. He forced Amanda to testify against Patricia in exchange for a reduced sentence. Sister betrayed mother to save herself from decades in prison. The testimony Amanda gave was damning. She revealed years of Patricia's manipulation, confirmed the poisoning, admitted to her own role in the conspiracy to take my baby. But Christopher's most symbolic revenge was selling the Lancaster estate, the mansion where I'd been tortured, where Caroline had died, where generations of Lancasters had ruled over high society. He sold it to a developer who tore it down to build affordable housing. He made sure everyone knew why. No one hurts my family and keeps their kingdom. The trial became the scandal that high society couldn't stop talking about. I testified, showing my scar, telling my story of 6 months of escalating abuse. Patricia's lawyers tried to paint me as a liar, as unstable, as a gold digger seeking attention. But Christopher brought 15 staff members to testify, 15 people who'd witnessed Patricia's cruelty, who'd been threatened into silence, who'd seen things that made them sick but were too afraid to speak up. Some of them had been abused by Patricia themselves over years of service. The prosecution presented the security footage, months of psychological torture, the poisoning, the moment Patricia attacked me with the iron. They showed Patricia's meetings with the private investigator, played audio of her planning to have me declared insane. They brought in experts who testified about the herbs she'd used, how they could cause miscarriage and developmental problems. And they reopened Caroline's case. New witnesses came forward, people who'd been young and scared back then, but were willing to speak now. The evidence suggested Patricia had pushed Caroline down those stairs. Patricia was convicted on multiple charges: attempted murder for the poisoning and the iron attack, conspiracy, and she was found guilty of manslaughter in connection with Caroline's death. She was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Amanda got 3 years for being an accomplice. Their high society friends abandoned them completely. The Lancaster name, once synonymous with power and prestige, became a cautionary tale about the rot that can hide behind wealth and status. I gave birth to a healthy baby boy 3 months after the trial ended. I named him James, after my father, breaking the Lancaster tradition of passing down family names. My father got to meet his grandson before he passed away peacefully 6 months later. Christopher took an entire year off work to be with us, to be the present father and husband he'd failed to be before. We moved across the country, away from that city and those memories, to a place where no one knew the Lancaster name. I started my own catering business, finally pursuing that dream I'd told Christopher about on one of those Friday nights years ago. It's small, but it's mine. I create food that makes people feel at home, just like I'd always wanted. Christopher became a different person, or maybe he became the person he was always meant to be, free from his mother's toxic influence. He's present, protective, loving in ways I never thought possible. The scar on my arm never faded. It's still there, a raised patch of damaged skin that catches my eye every time I look down. But I don't hide it anymore. It's not a mark of shame. It's a reminder of what I survived, of the strength I didn't know I had until I needed it. We started a foundation together, Christopher and I, focused on helping victims of domestic abuse in wealthy families, because we learned that money doesn't hide evil, it just buys silence. And we're done being silent. They say blood is thicker than water, but what about poison disguised as love? Patricia thought she could break me because I came from nothing, because I was just a waitress who didn't know which fork to use at fancy dinners. But she forgot something important. People who've survived poverty know how to survive anything. We're fighters by necessity. What saved me wasn't just Christopher's love, though that mattered. What saved me was evidence, documentation, security footage, medical records, witnesses willing to speak up. If you're in a situation like I was, document everything, keep records, trust your gut when something feels wrong. Abuse in wealthy families is hidden behind closed doors and iron gates. It's swept under expensive rugs and silenced with non-disclosure agreements. But abuse is abuse, whether it happens in a mansion or a mobile home. Pain doesn't care about your bank account, and justice shouldn't either. Christopher chose truth over his family name, chose protecting me over protecting his mother's reputation. That's real love. Not the fairy tale kind, but the kind that shows up when everything is falling apart. To anyone trapped in a similar situation, you're not crazy. You're not overreacting. You're not weak for staying or for being affected by the abuse. And there is a way out. It might not be easy and it might not be quick, but there is a way out. Your voice matters. Your pain is real, and you deserve to be believed. If this story made you angry, good. Channel that anger into action. Hit like if you believe abusers should face consequences regardless of their wealth or status. Comment below if you've ever felt like no one would believe you because your abuser seemed perfect to everyone else. I see you. I believe you. Your story matters just as much as mine does. Subscribe because next week I'm revealing what happened when Patricia tried to contact me from prison and Christopher's response that went viral worldwide. Remember, your trauma is valid, your voice matters, and revenge isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's just living your best life while they lose everything they valued. Sometimes it's turning your pain into purpose and helping others escape what you barely survived. Thank you for listening to my story. Stay strong, stay safe, and remember, you're stronger than you think. I'll see you next time.